So if we could start with an introductory question, and you could describe the level of cash payment habits in your jurisdiction, while touching and providing an overview of the current level of cash access for both citizens and merchants, as well as the level of cash acceptance by both private and public goods and service providers. And if possible, if you could also give me your view on how do you see the relationship between cash infrastructure and cash payment habit. I will start with the jurisdiction with the lowest share of cash payments at the point of sale, according to ECB's latest space, and that is Koen with 22%. I mean, not personally you, but Netherlands with 22%.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the cash use in the Netherlands is about 20% of all in-person payments at the point of sale. Cash use has been stable for the last 4 years. Before there have been a big decline. It remains to be seen if we plateaued or if it will further decline, but at least for the last 4 years it has been stable. The general acceptance rate of cash is approximately 96%, other way around, luckily. And some sectors like pharmacy and cinemas have a lower acceptance rate. So this worries us a little bit because we like to keep this as high as possible. And also in at some government areas, cash isn't accepted. The less acceptance reduces the need to access to cash, and don't forget also the cash deposits, because if you don't take care of that, the cash cycle is in danger.
Okay, thank you. So next one up with, according to Space, 27 cash share at point of sale is Finland.
Yes, I think Finland and the Netherlands share a lot, at least what comes to payment habits. A bit kind of different from year to year. From the kind of transactions, approximately 20% of transactions at POS are paid with cash, but those are usually smaller payments, which means that the value-based share of cash is perhaps around 10%. We also rely on space studies when we evaluate the cash acceptance in the country. We don't do studies of that by ourselves. And the last acceptance rate was somewhere a bit above 80%. We are quite happy with that, considering that the level of cash usage is so low. So we have been able to maintain the cash acceptance at least to kind of somehow acceptable level. But just like Koen said, the kind of profitable, sustainable cash cycle is key for keeping cash in the society. And I think the questions about how to make the CITs, cash handling companies, operate in an efficient way, being profitable, and by that providing the services to the merchants, the cash deposit facilities, and then availability of cash withdrawals. I mean, that's a circle that we have to kind of take care of completely. Thank you.
Okay, lastly, Matthias with 62%.
Yeah, of course, Austria is in a, I would say, at the moment, completely different situation still than Finland and the Netherlands. Of course, nevertheless, cash is also, the cash usage is declining in Austria. That's very clear. We, of course, everybody, we are facing a more and more digital world. And of course, there will go on the declining also in Austria. This is what we're aware of. The question is somehow the speed of it, and compared to other countries, we still have a very low speed. We don't have a drop the more 1, 2, 3% a year. We're just going down on the POS. A very interesting development is in Austria are really cash lovers. We are really love the cash and we really use it a lot. I think also because the infrastructure is very good in Austria. I can maybe come to this point a little later, because this is very important. If you have a good cash cycle, a good cash infrastructure, good for the customers, good for the merchants. You don't pay any fee if you pick up at an ATM of a bank, which have like 95% of the ATM infrastructure in Austria. This is of course very important in the whole picture. But what is very important also, Austrians love the online shopping. We are also under the top 3 in the Eurozone with the online shopping, which proves first, of course, that the Austrians are not only traditional and not modern. They like modern things if they want it, but on the other hand, they like traditions like cash if they see a benefit for them. Yeah, so this is a very good picture. On the other hand, of course, more online shopping means, of course, less payments transactions on the POS. So if you are stable on the POS, but the online shopping is growing, then you have another decline in the cash extra. You don't see it on the PS. You have to see the whole online and POS shopping, and then you see this decline. So in Austria, we have the 62%. We will do also our own survey. I think we will have there the next results end of this year, beginning next year. I guess we will be in the 50s now, not 62. We will see. It will be 59 or it will be 56. This will this I guess are the ideas, or how can I say, our estimations we will get around. But we see there will be not a big backlash and a big decline, but there will be one. And yeah, at the moment, it is still very easy to get your cash. You get it fee-free. The merchants get easily their exchange money and they get rid of the money. You know that Austria has the Central Bank of Austria has an own subsidiary, which is deeply involved into the market, which is of course bringing this market environment also there for the retailers. So at the moment, we are still on a good level, and we want to prepare for what will be if we are around 50% or even 40%, to keep also this cash cycle on a good way, to motivate the banks to keep the infrastructure alive, and also about cash acceptance with the retailers. So this is what we are dealing at the moment.
Which, if I actually can stay with you, Matthias, and go into my second question, and that one is on the kind of policy and or legislative initiative when it comes to access and or acceptance of cash. So can you let me know, in Austria, have there been any although the situation, as you say, is kind of good at the moment, have there been any key initiatives that have been introduced or proposed in Austria to either maintain or strengthen the cash infrastructure? And also, if you could mention, who is leading these efforts? Is it the central bank and or government and or local government and or commercial banks? And what specific problems and risks you're trying to address?
Yeah, we are trying to keep this good level we have and to make it fit for the future. We are focusing on 3 points. The first one is, of course, to keep the infrastructure alive. If you don't get to your cash, then you don't have the freedom of choice anymore. It's getting down. If it's very problematic and very painful to get your cash, you don't want to pay cash. If it's easy to get to an ATM, then you will be more willing to do. So this is the cash infrastructure. We had hard negotiations with the banks, and they somehow agreed now on an MOU with the Austrian Organization for Communities and Villages, that they will keep for the next 5 years their ATM standards as it is. So this means the ATM standard at the moment we have is, make it short, 97% of the Austrians live within 5 kilometers to the next ATM. And what is very important also, 67%, 65% maybe, live within 1 kilometer to the ATM. So we have a very high coverage.
That's in large cities. This is in cities, the 1 kilometer.
No, yeah, of course. In the large cities you have the people with the 1 kilometer, but not only. So we have 65% around have only from all Austrians, not from the cities, from all Austrians have within 1 kilometer an ATM, and around 83% have it within 2 kilometers, and 97 have it at least within 5 kilometers, which are really good figures. Yeah. And so we are very happy that the Austrian banks agreed to say we keep this standard more or less until end of 2029. And for this infrastructure, we have about 350 villages. Some of them are very small, which don't have any ATM. And this is why we made the initiative now. We said that if the banks say to keep the standard, we will open up to 100 to 120 ATMs on the costs of the Central Bank of Austria to fill and to improve our ATM infrastructure. And I'm very happy to say that this we will do. The first ATM of the Central Bank of Austria will be opened at least this summer. So this is the ATM infrastructure we are doing. The second one is the cash acceptance. The cash acceptance in Austria is still very good. You can pay almost everywhere with cash. Of course, you have some small shops and restaurants. Some of them, if they try to be modern and fancy, they just accept cards. But this is very rare. It really happens not very often if you have a in-person situation that they don't accept cash. But, and this is important, it is legally difficult if there is an obligation for a shop to accept the cash, or if it's allowed to refuse it by assigned cards only. There are some lawyers, also Central Bank is of the opinion it is forbidden in Austria. You are not allowed to do it. But what is very clear, there are no legal results if you're doing it. You can only do it and clarify it within the civil law, which is, of course, for the customer a very painful and difficult situation. So we are of the opinion we want to have a clear legal description, and that you have the claim that you pay a certain amount if there is a person in the shop that you pay cash. This is the second thing. Of course, for this, we need the parliament, we need the legislator, we need the politics. This is what we demand, this is what we say, but of course, it's not in our hand. This is the second one. Please,
Matthias, when it comes to the access to cash conditions, maybe I missed it. So you are looking at ATMs, or are you also looking at cash services and commercial bank branches in any way?
No, we as a central bank will only open maximum 120 ATMs in villages which don't have any access in their territory.
Okay, so basically you're not kind of like looking at bank branches and the cash services via, because, for example, for merchants, right, for SMEs and so on, there is a bit of a difference whether they deposit in an ATM
We will not open cash recycler. It is just the cash access for picking up the money. We will not do cash recyclers. At the moment, we have looked at it. We have still a very good coverage also for cash recycling for the retailers. At this point, there are no plans to do it from our side. This is, in our opinion, this is a job for the banks exclusively. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthias.
So the second one was the cash acceptance, and the third one, which is very important for us, is the image of the cash. We are focusing on it because very often this means all of us, the central banks, are very often focusing on the topic of inclusive for people, for the old ones, for the young ones, for the people who are struggling with the digitalization. But we are also focusing on the people who want to keep a digital and a non-digital world beside. For the really freedom of the choice, because we know the number one in service is not only the privacy, it is that people say, I can control the spending of my money with cash better than I can with cards. And there are some studies who even confirm this, and it doesn't matter. Maybe some of them can do it with the digital payments better than with the cash. But that's not harm. That you don't have to feel ashamed when you say I can do it better with cash. This is a very fair point, and this is we always say. I mean, if you say cash is for the poor ones and cash is for the old ones, why should I pay with cash when I'm young, when I'm not poor, when I like digitalization? The Austrian way to pay cash but to love online shopping is a fair point. And this is the image of the cash. You can love digital payments. That's very good, wonderful. But you can also love cash. That's also good. That's equal. And this is the image. And this is very important. Maybe I'm allowed to say it. I always say, if you look for Apple's iPhone is a high-end product and it costs a lot, to tell you the truth. And one of the arguments is, it is said, this Apple iPhone, it's fixing together everything so good. This iOS system, the software and the hardware, it's so easy. You look at it and you know what to do. And then you pay a lot of money for it because it's so good, the product. But no one would say, that's so simple. You pay a lot for this iPhone. It is so simple. Every idiot can use it. Nobody would say this. If Android is too complicated for you, you buy an iPhone. Everybody would say, okay, does it mean I'm an idiot when I'm paying Apple? No, I have a cool product and I pay a lot of money, but it's working perfect. I'm not buying an iPhone because I'm too stupid for Android. If this would be the advertisement campaign, I don't think it would be very good for them. And this is what I mean. I pay cash, not because I'm poor and not because I don't like the digitalization or I'm too stupid for it. No, I pay cash for good reasons. And this is the third point we are really trying to going forward.
Okay. Can I ask Koen to follow up on this? Because Matthias, you mentioned you have, when it comes to access to cash, you're kicking off with a MOU, a gentleman's agreement, and this is how you kind of kicked off in the Netherlands with the covenant, and now moving to legislation. So, kind of, if you could kind of comment, Koen.
Yeah, the reaction on the covenant is the next phase. That is, we have upcoming national legislation that will require merchant to accept cash as a means of payment, and the legislation will be put into civil law, and thereby prevailing in the freedom of contract. And the new law also makes it more obliged to make the use of cash in the future more proof. And we are quite happy with a stable accessibility to cash, and we would like to keep that. And we thought that the law is stronger than a covenant, of course. So it's more like an evolution of the way we look at cash, and we like to protect it. Especially in this uncertain times of crisis and geopolitical changes in the world. We think that the choice of a digital and cash is very important in the first place, and it can be a mean of resilience. And therefore, we like to protect the use and accessibility and the payability of cash, of course.
Could you give a bit detail on the access to cash legislation parameters, so to speak?
Well, in fact, there's a big comparison to Austria. I guess we have a coverage of 100% of all the citizens, but to the ATMs and also for the depositing. And sometimes we had a little struggle about what should be the range to the ATM because it comes with costs, and all the costs are bared by the commercial banks. for almost the whole cash cycle. But we also stepped forward into the chain of the cash cycle as a Dutch central bank, because we are going to take care of the seal bags, which is the cash money of the retailers. We will handle the seal bags and execute it cost neutral at the central bank. And before we did that at the commercial cash centers. So this is also a gesture of, of course, approved by the Ministry of Finance, that that we took this step into the chain, and that we could, take a little cost out of the chain and take it to the central bank.
What I also, correct me if I'm wrong, find interesting in the access to cash legislation, that it doesn't only look at the number and kind of like number of ATMs, but it looks at the functionality of the ATMs, both recyclers and the ability to deposit coins, if I'm correct, but also the kind of out of order situation, which I find very often we kind of have like, there should be so many ATMs and these distances fine, and this is established and it's there, but then if half of them are out of order, the picture kind of like changes, and I think that's quite like interesting.
Of course, the uptime as an average is about 98%, so that's pretty good, pretty high. But if you live in the more remote areas, even the Netherlands got some remote areas, and you only have one, it's still, it's painful, like Matthias said, to have a longer trip to get rid of your money or to obtain your money. And on those critical points, we like to double the ATMs, and then it's more resilient in itself, because if one is down or empty, then you at least have at that certain point you have a second one.
Thank you. Päivi, do you have any comment comparison to where you at?
Our legislators seem to be quite kind of different-minded, even if we share the same European Union background. Bank of Finland made an initiative to the Parliament already 2022 that they should decide what is the level of cash in the Finnish society that the Parliament considers as adequate. Unfortunately, this initiative hasn't moved forward. We are still looking forward to some sort of possibility to provide a text for the legislation, suggest something more concrete. The ministry is mainly looking forward to the legal tender regulation prepared in the European Commission, and it has been kind of in the pipeline for a couple of years already. Unfortunately, the slowness in the European Commission now kind of slows down our own legislative process as well. So we are very worried of the situation. We need to have regulation both on the access and acceptance of cash. And I hope that the situation will not deteriorate too much before we have the regulatory kind of framework in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Päivi. I mean, coming back to you, Koen, in the Netherlands, you nevertheless did introduce mandatory acceptance despite those developments, or kind of not developments, when it comes to the legal tender for Eurocash. So
sorry.
Päivi mentioned that, if I understand, so in Finland there's a bit of a, when it comes to legislation or access and or acceptance, there's a bit of a wait and see what happens at the EU level with the legal tender.
I guess there is a difficulty in a sense of urgency. I guess the politics in the Netherlands want to protect what's left of the cash usage and the cash infrastructure, and they want to set a stop on protecting the infrastructure. It all comes down. I almost would say, like Dutch people always do, they have the business case. And if we go lower than 20%, the usage of cash is paid by the commercial bank, or at least the people who are using it. And we don't think that is that is fair. So we like a fair share, and like to be like that it will be paid by all people who have access to cash, digital or in tangible cash. So I guess it's more a difference in interacting at this moment, or just a little bit wait and see, or things that the things are going right now doesn't disturb enough.
Which leads me kind of back to Päivi and the topic of this roundtable, which is cash payment habit for crisis resilience. And we talked about a sense of urgency. Now, Päivi, like with your thinking at the central bank, and when it comes to access and acceptance of cash, so how much is that impacted by kind of the need to have or appreciating cash for its crisis resilience role?
If you look at the statistics, and you can see that even if Finns don't use cash, they want to have it around. They want to have the opportunity to use it if needed. And that is one strength in our society, which kind of slows down the acceptance of rejection of cash payments, for instance, by merchants. We see cash as part of the toolkit for resilience. It's not a silver bullet, but we need several tools available because there are so many different scenarios that could interrupt our retail payments, daily payments in the society. And the main task for us is to ensure that we can kind of run a civil society as normally as possible, whatever happens, whether it's the sea cables, whether it's something in the cyberspace, whatever, geopolitical or weaponizing payments, as we have seen that's also possible. So we have to have a lot of tools in our toolkit, and cash is one important tool there. We have done a lot of policy work regarding this, knowing that the legislation is not going forward, so we need to be outspoken. We have to speak in public to different interest groups, including the politicians. And I think we have found quite a good consensus. Even a large commercial bank yesterday in our payments forum said that we must have also cash available in the future. And previously, I mean, the sentiment has been to the contrary. So we are doing a lot of policy work, and it seems to be successful in the sense that there is no direct threat to cash. But anyway, I mean, we need to be vigilant and continue. Thank you.
And I stay with you, Päivi.
Yep.
So basically, we agree that cash is important for the moment, for crisis resilience, and in the moment of a crisis. It can be also personal crisis, be kind of these kind of glitches that do happen, right? It has to be full-scale invasion. But I mean, now, what is the relationship to the cash payment habit in good times? Do you have this type of thinking where, for cash to function in a crisis, we need a certain level or target certain level of cash infrastructure, and therefore we need to target a certain level of cash payment habit, and for that level of the cash payment habit, we have to make sure that the access and acceptance conditions are kind of like just so. Or this is my kind of question or hypothesis, being inspired, I have to say, by the Digital Euro project, right? That, is developing a payment habit from zero demand and from zero habit at the moment. So what when it comes to Digital Euro project as a payment instrument, there the policies are to, set it up with the best possible access and deposit conditions for citizens and merchants by use acceptance, mandatory acceptance with penalties, fees kept for merchants. So kind of like go, push for the best on all cylinders so to speak, and policies to kind of create the best possible free to choose payment option. So, you know, where is it? Would cash be targeting a level, or should we kind of be going like pull out, or?
We have tried to make calculations and estimations what would be the absolute minimum level of the cash cycle that would still kind of deliver. There are so many assumptions you have to make that I mean it's more guessing than really kind of scientific research that you can do. But somebody said already in the beginning of this discussion that in order to function in difficult times, I mean, the cash cycle has to be alive also in normal times. Cash or any other backup system cannot be held in a cupboard, and then when you need it, you kind of take it out and dust it, and then you start using it. It has to be up and running. And we try to kind of do our part, as Kuhn said, by providing the cash cycle better services which enable them to work more efficiently, also more cost efficiently, and kind of having both merchants and citizens understand that you're going to need cash, so have it available. For instance, one of our policy messages has been that you're supposed to have a emergency supply kit here in Finland, so that if you're not able to go shopping for 72 hours, you would survive. You should have food. It doesn't have to be luxury, but enough food, enough water if you're dependent on medicine, so that you can survive 72 hours without going to shopping. And we have added the emergency home kit for payments to that list. And it includes a small amount of cash, and that has been very well received. And kind of often hear people say that luckily I have my 20 euros in my pocket. Luckily I have my coin jar full of 2 euro coins. I'm going to survive even if there would be a glitch for a couple of days in electronic payments.
So the follow-up question here is, so if people, you know, have this emergency cash kit savings at home, but then they just kind of have it sitting there as the emergency kit, but don't pay cash, don't use it. Is that sufficient?
That's the case. That's pretty much the case we have in Finland, yes.
Yeah.
This is, as I may interrupt, this is very actual in the Netherlands as well. In the upcoming period, we are going to communicate about this, adding cash to your emergency kit as well. And the advice, of course, is if you got it at home, please keep it separated from your normal day-to-day. Otherwise, people will be tempted to spend it anyway, and then you're back to zero again. So you have to keep this message alive. So the repeating of this message is very important. And well, not only banknotes, also coins and the smaller banknotes are important in case of emergency. Otherwise,
it's not about hoarding. It's about having enough cash that if you run out of water, for instance, so kind of you can go and get 5 liters of fresh water, and it doesn't cost awfully much. Well, during crisis, it might cost a bit more than it does now, but anyway, I mean, you get the picture.
And what about some use it or lose it announcement or kind of recommendation? We did have a bit of a precedence last year when the governor of the Swedish central bank actually kind of did a 1-minute video encouraging Swedish citizens to, not every day, but occasionally, like a few times a week, to pay with cash to maintain the cash infrastructure. I mean, is that something that, you know, you see your central bank or governors doing? Or I kind of go to Matthias to comment on Päivi and end this question.
Yeah, I can fully agree. We are doing this. This use it or lose it. In Austria, especially, also in Germany, there is always the big fear from many people that cash could be abolished and could be replaced even by the digital euro or something like this. And this is always my answer in TV interviews is, don't be afraid of it. Use it. This is the best statement you can do. If you regularly use it, nobody, you will not lose it. It's us and the infrastructure. This is why we are losing it. If people use it, there is the demand for it, and yeah. So I guess we are really sending this message. Even in the beginning, many people in Austria were wondering why we do it. If you have a cash usage from 70%, people are wondering if you do like this. But of course, we know the international development, which will come sooner or later also to us, maybe not the full impact. And this is the message we're sending, and I think it's helpful.
I mean, is it also a bit, let's say, easier for you in Austria as the central bank to say, please use cash, use it or lose it? Because when you say that, the access conditions are quite good, so let's say the distance is 1 kilometer, people don't have to pay any fees, and they know when they do make the effort, which is a big effort in Austria to withdraw, they kind of have a certainty that they can pretty much pay with it everywhere. While, if you're another jurisdiction and the central bank would say, please use more cash, it's kind of saying a bit like, do it for your country, drive 10 kilometers, withdraw cash, pay a fee, and then drive to the local supermarket, petrol station, or pharmacy, which are kind of like the only places you can pay with cash. So
this is why we try to be early there. This
Yeah.
is why we try to be early there, because we can see it. I know the very good initiatives Cohen was talking about. But it's easier to protect the ATM than to re-establish one ATM. I can easily imagine how hard this is. And the same is with the cash acceptance. I read the figures about your pharmacy. I think 25% of the pharmacies are not accepting. I've never seen any pharmacy in Austria who is not accepting cash. I hardly can imagine. But of course, if we don't do it, we will have the first one. I don't know this year, next year, or in 10 years, but it will come. And from these international experiences, we try to profit. And we're talking about, yes, it is easier. And this is what we are telling the people and the politics. It's easier to act now than to act in a couple of years when the problem is getting more intensive. If we are successful, we will see.
When it comes when it comes to the acceptance, Kuhn, obviously, like, so, we talk a lot about cash. Acceptance is the other half of the chicken and egg challenge, so to speak. So, how are you, approaching that at the Nationalbank Bank? Are you making sure that cash remains widely and reliably accepted? Also kind of in the context of, private sector card schemes, fee structures, marketing incentives for merchants to accept digital payments methods. Are you looking at the access and deposit conditions for merchants, for instance? What work is being done for their conditions?
Well, part of the new upcoming law is, of course, not only the cash withdrawal, but also the deposit. It comes with very strict rules. So this is part of the cash cycle you don't want to miss. The acceptance is quite high, but we think it's undermining the uses of cash, even if it's a small percentage of situations that you can't pay with cash. We are trying to influence that it's part of the acceptance of cash, and even the Ministry of Finance is also pretty strict in this. For example, we had the parking meters at the street. Where you could pay with coins. They were shut down about 20 years ago. You don't see them in the streets anymore. But at the big queue parks, where you can park your car, we like to stimulate the possibility of making the payments by cash, just like in the grocery shops, in the big grocery shops here in the Netherlands. Like we got a very big scheme. It's called Albert Heijn. Doesn't matter. But anyway, you have all the self-service checkouts, but you also have one self-service checkouts where you can pay with cash. at least you have a choice of mean, and that is a nice, it's almost like that you. It's almost a compromise that you can still pay with cash in the supermarket, even if it's the most self-service checkouts are more accepted by cards. And for example, yesterday I heard some extra information about what happened in Spain. You see if there's an outage in. We lost Päivi. Oh, there she is again. Sorry, you were. And even the biggest grocery shops had problems because they were didn't have enough space to accept cash. So the small grocery shops, they survived, and the biggest one were closed down because they couldn't handle the enormous amount of people who are trying to pay with cash. They had access to cash, but the acceptance was a little bit in danger because of the infrastructure of that shops. So this is also things you have to keep in mind. Never take tech for granted. And we see things like what happening with an outage, like in Portugal and Spain. It can happen everywhere. Don't be silly to think that your country isn't that strong to protect it. So then cash accessibility is not only it, also the infrastructure to handle it is also a second part of the resilience.
When you do you speak to some of the merchants who do not accept cash, and do you ask them for the reasons why, or like what are the key?
At this level, we talk with all those entities more at a high level because the legislation will be there in mid 2026. So it's getting more. Now at a higher level, we have to come down to individual shops, and we won't have a sort of a police which take control of. Are going to take the control of all the small shops, but of course, if it's more habit, people are getting annoyed that they can't pay by card, and they just miss volume in their shops.
But regulatory threat is a very effective tool in persuading the merchants to accept cash, because sooner or later the European legal tender regulation will be there, and then you should start bringing back your cash tills. So so it has been one of the arguments we have been using as well.
So I actually wanted to ask you, Päivi, to follow up on Koen, and to ask you, like, what was the situation in Finland when it comes to, you said when it comes to acceptance, you kind of rely on the data at the moment of ECB and space, but are you in conversation with merchants associations? What are their views on their access and deposit conditions, and what are the reasons, if you know, for non-cash acceptance?
According to my understanding, the merchants are not awfully happy with the deposit facilities. The usage of cash is quite low, which means that they don't accumulate large amounts of cash in the shop. So it's not kind of feasible that they would start using CITs, kind of picking up those 200 euros that they have in their till, and they would very much like to have more recycling ATMs where they can deposit their daily cash, and also the how do you call them in English, the safety boxes where they could leave their cash for the night, and then they would be picked up later and calculated and credited to their account. So that is absolutely one of the questions that we have to solve. But as I said, I mean, we have used moral persuasion. I mean, merchants want to serve their customers first and foremost, and merchants also. I mean, there are regulations regarding retailers, for instance, what sort of products they need to have and how they need to handle their products. So they also have kind of social responsibility to serve their customers, and allowing customers to pay cash is part of that. And as I said, I mean, we don't see problems in the area of essential goods, as we say. Don't ask me to define what it is, but mainly for food, medicine, maybe fuel, things that people just need for their everyday life. I think there the cash acceptance is still quite good. And it's more like the hipster cafeterias or smaller kind of boutiques that don't want to have cash. But then I mean, it's their choice. That's not so much on my heart.
To understand when it comes to the kind of access deposit conditions of merchants, so is the focus on the functionality of ATMs and or what is offered at the bank branches?
There are so few bank branches in this country that you don't kind of take them into account, actually. So you're talking about ATMs, CIT services, safety boxes, that sort of services. So the service provision by bank branches is really limited.
And what about the central bank having depots? I mean, this is kind of what happened in Sweden a few years back, you know, when
the depot is not for end customers. I mean, it's for the CITs, what they have in Sweden. And I was a bit worried, to be honest with you, when Matthias told about the central bank setting up ATMs, because we have a very strict policy. I mean, cash services are part of the basic banking services. And it's stipulated in law. It's European legislation. The banks who receive deposits from their customers, they are liable for the cash services for their customers. And they have to take care of that one way or another. They have to provide them by themselves, or they have to kind of buy the service from somewhere. And I think there's going to be a moral hazard if central bank goes to the end customer services, because then the credit institutions are able to say, oh, come on, the central bank is taking care of this already. So, I mean, it's the central bank's product. Central bank can take care of that. And I would be very, very careful about the moral hazard here. And personally, I don't think I would ever introduce a proposal like this in Finland.
The Austrian banks are doing one of the best jobs in the whole Eurozone. And this is the precondition for it. And why shouldn't we do? I mean, our competitors are the digital payments. And I've never heard they're saying, we are doing enough service. That's enough. They're always thinking about getting better and more customer friendly. And so you would be right. If we are filling gaps, the banks are opening up. And this is exactly what we are not doing. We are saying the Austrian banks are doing a very good job compared to almost every other European area. But still people say we want more. And we said, okay, we understand. If you are the best, more or less, you cannot be the super best. But for us, we think, and you know, that the seniorage is a good benefit for all of us. So why shouldn't we invest a very small into it? Because this is also the truth. Of course, it is our product. And tell you the truth, we as a Central Bank of Austria, we really mirroring this, that it is our product. Very often the central banks are not doing this. This is our product anymore. So I see the danger completely, but I think if you do it right, as we are doing it, it's not a big deal. Even if the banks are now closing down ATMs, contrary to the MOU, we have a chip in the market because we said we did our job. Legislator, the banks, they have to fulfill their MOU, or it is up to you to do something. So we are a player. We are not standing on the side like the central bank's doing. We are now into the game.
So if I understand it correctly, to summarize, so basically the question is, you know, who should be funding the cash infrastructure? So should it be the central bank? We've seen rich, but you know, nevertheless, it's a public institution, so this is a bit of a taxpayer situation. Or should this obligation be on commercial banks as part of their banking license? This is where Päivi is. And you, Matthias, are like kind of like in a mix, right?
I mean, yeah, in general, we have the GSA. I think all of you know what it is, this cash logistics subsidiary, which is now 100% owned by the central bank. We have it since 1999. This means we are helping the banks, but of course we are selling them on market prices. But still we keep the competition in a very tight market alive. And of course we are doing it very successfully. And so we have, of course you could say also in 1999, this is a big danger that the banks rely too much on the central bank. But this system is working for 26 years and it's still working. The banks have their benefits because we of course have synergies between them and us. But on the other hand, they are paying for it, but we help them to organize it to make it very efficient. And this is so, yes, it is a mix, but to tell the truth, for us, it's the same. The cash distribution, the cash cycle is a duty of the commercial banks. But of course, if they're doing a good job, it is of course okay to help to a super level to keep also really the freedom of choice alive. I see that the danger of Päivi very well, and there is a point, but I think we really could mitigate it very well.
Gun, do you have any comments? And also, I kind of wanted to also touch on, you know, you Matthias, you saying the Austrian banks are doing a good job. AKA, I think when you're looking at the access to cash level, you're looking at easy and convenient, which I call it easy and convenient access. In Netherlands, it's more at the stage of the sufficient access. So I kind of also wanted to ask, like, how do you define what is easy and convenient, and what is sufficient, and sufficient for what? You know. So kind of with this question into question, and also maybe if you could follow up on discussion that Matthias and Päivi had on the responsibility and funding between central bank, state tax.
Yeah, I guess the Netherlands is a little bit in between those countries. I feel and I see that the Dutch central bank is also really a part of the cash cycle and not standing aside. The highest costs are for the commercial banks. But we are doing things in the future different than we did in the past. And an example of that is what I mentioned earlier, that we are going to handle the sealbacks and do it at a cost-neutral base. This is a step forward, also as a sort of a support for the cash cycle, and to show them that we are part and also taking a step forward into this chain. And this is something which also works very positive to the commercial banks. They are very positive about this initiative that we took this step forward. So they see that it's not that we applaud for their effort to keep cash available and accessible and payable. And of course, to have some assurance for the future, we do this extra step. And the end assurance for the future is, and I totally agree with Matthias, is the usage of cash. Because if you still have the choice, you still have the availability, and it's accessible and it's payable. But if the custom doesn't use it anymore, then it's that will be the biggest disruption of the cash cycle.
Yeah, maybe we are not so very far away from each other, because we are working very closely with the cash cycle participants, with the CITs mainly, cash handling companies. They are our participants. We don't have banks as our customers, unfortunately. Banks have withdrawn from the cash cycle completely. And we are working very much with them in order to keep the cash cycle alive. But we are not going to the end customer front. We are in the back office, so to say, how the service is produced, and we are doing a lot there. I can assure you, we don't have time to delve deeper in there, but we are not going to the end customer domain. That's for the banks. That's their liability.
I'm kind of aware that we have a few minutes left, so I will group two questions into one. Quite often we hear that it's sufficient. So, the idea is let's have mandatory acceptance legislation, but for essential goods only, because essential goods only are needed in a crisis. So only essential goods need to be paid in cash in good times, so it's possible to pay for them in a crisis. So I would kind of be interested, on your views on that concept, aka, in normal times, is this kind of restriction, making cash less attractive, or is it actually kind of non-liberal by telling as a state to cash users, we think that for your life, what is essential, it's to go and buy cold food from the supermarket and buy medicine, but, don't go to the cinema and opera and, this is the non-essential life good for you, granny. And in a crisis times, and especially like in a prolonged crisis, is it even sufficient for people, for instance, to live for 3 weeks on cold supermarket food and not having the ability to buy batteries, radios, go on a public transport, and so on and so forth? So one question: essential goods, mandatory acceptance. Your views. We kind of do like a lightning round. Another part is what we sometimes start to hear is, well, if I pitch it, we don't need cash, or we need a bit of cash, but actually there's offline functionality of card payments. So it might be sufficient if citizens open, have several bank accounts and or several cards, where they kind of like hold amounts to be able to pay offline with 4 or 5 cards. What is your view on that? I mean, is it a viable option? Does it make kind of like cash as a kind of crisis resilience tool obsolete? And leading question, like how realistic it is that 100% of the population can either open several bank accounts or have access to opening several cards. So should I start with? I maybe start with Koen. So essential goods and offline functionality as the solution. The golden bullets.
To my opinion, I guess there shouldn't be that big a difference between essential and non-essential goods. I think if you use it in both ways, you keep the customer used to have the choice of means, and that is very important. And of course, for essential foods, if you can spend it once, please, in crisis situation, use it for essential good. But that's just a way to survive, I guess. I think there are some possibilities to have an extra payment means, like maybe in the future the offline digital euro might be a solution for have an extra payment method in situations of a crisis.
But I mean, when we talk about essential goods, I mean, we are talking about mandatory acceptance of cash payments. We don't prohibit anyone from accepting cash. I mean, anyone is free. I mean, Louis Vuitton is free to accept cash payments during crises. I don't care. But I care that if you're selling food, and usually in food stores, you have also batteries, you have water, you have whatever. I mean, especially in a country like Finland, where the retail sector is also quite concentrated. So if you're selling kind of stuff that people need to survive on daily basis, then you have to accept cash. Others, I don't care. If you want to serve your customers, please do accept cash. But mandatory acceptance, that's targeted.
I think what I mean by that is kind of what I call the personal crisis, So when you speak, let's say, to domestic abuse victims kind of on the run and under protection programs with their children, and they cannot take their children to public libraries or swimming pools, or to the cinema. You know, it's not just this kind of like war situation. It actually like limits how they can interact in their daily lives. You know.
But then this is more like a social security issue for me than kind of crisis preparedness issue. I'm not kind of I'm absolutely certain that that is a serious question, but it has to be tackled in normal times already. What I'm kind of worried about is the potential crisis where the society needs to still function.
Matthias, I will nevertheless.
I make it very, very, very short. The first one about the cash acceptance. Cash is a legal tender, so up to a certain limit, and of course for some logical exemptions, you have to accept it. This is very clear for me. This should apply also then later on for the digital euro, and it shall apply also for the cash. And for the second, with the offline solution, I want to give it a little different answer, also short, because everything, of course, is also true what Kuhn said and Päivi. I just want to say is, if we come to the point that paying cash is cool and modern, in the meaning of everybody can do already digital, but we can do non-digital. Yeah, then we don't have to worry about it. And the people will have the cash, the people will pay. And if there's a daily use of cash, we will also come over the crisis.